my Lord, what a day. You guys, like, I always cry at the end of my videos, and I'm crying, like, starting my video today, because I was just driving around, and I was like, listen, I've just been like, you know what's interesting is I just said in my video yesterday that, like, this vlog has helped me so much, and I'm like, you know, moved past, you know, a lot of, like, grieving with my mom, and I really do feel that way, but, like, it's weird, like, in 10 years, her death date has, like, really never meant anything to me, but for some reason, I think this year, being that it's the 10th year, like, it's not even so much that she's been gone for so long, or that I'm sad, or that I miss her, which is, I do, but it's like so much has happened, you know, like, that she hasn't been a part of in my life, and I didn't end up seeing my stepmom today. I texted her, and we were talking back and forth, and, you know, she said, I bet you really miss your mom, you know, today, and I said, yeah, it seems like a lifetime ago, like, that she was even here, you know, like, I don't even really remember much about her. I can't hear her voice in my head anymore, so I think tomorrow I'm gonna watch the VCR of her speaking at my cousin's wedding. But before I got on here, I was listening to some music. It was just like, it was so weird. Like, I was thinking back about, like, the night before my mom's funeral, or her viewing. Like, two of my friends, we put these CDs together. And my one friend, Mary Ann, who was so good to my mom at the end, and she, like, would come over to her house every day before she went in the hospital and read to her and do the crossword with her. And they would watch movies together and stuff, because my mom couldn't get out of bed. She put, like, all the CDs together of, like, my mom's favorite music. My mother loved music so much, you know, like, she just always, like, if I, you know, the two constants in her life always were music and movies. And I would love to find her eulogy, and I would love to read it on a video just so I have it, and my reaction to it, because I read a eulogy at her funeral, and I talked in there about all the movies that my mother loved, and I don't know, I have no idea where I put it. I can't, you know, I have no idea where I put it. I've looked for it, and I mean, I remember, so I had a really nice suit that I got. I don't know if I've said this story on here before, but I said for my mom's funeral that I just wanted to wear, like, a pair of linen pants and, like, an open collared, like, linen shirt. And my aunt, like, about went crazy, and she was like, you will wear a suit and tie to your mother's funeral. I mean, in retrospect, yes, it was very disrespectful, and I see that, but, like, I didn't think that at the time. I thought, you know, like, it's my mom, and, you know, and she was like, your mother loved you in a shirt and tie, and which she did. And so my aunt was so nice, and she was like, here, go buy yourself a suit. There's kind of a funny story to it, because I called my dad, and my dad was like, your Aunt Kathy is being very nice, buying you a suit, and you need to, and she's right, you need to be in a suit, and you know, whatever, and, so I got this suit, but anyway, the suit that I have is, like, hanging at home somewhere in, like, a suit, like, a, you know, a bag, and I wore it to a wedding, like, 5 years after that, and in the inside pocket was the eulogy, and I took the eulogy out and I put it somewhere, but I don't know where I put it. So anyway, the night before my mom's funeral, we drove around. my friend Liz and my friend Marianne and I, and we listened to like the CDs of all of her music and kind of told funny stories and stuff. And I'd kind of forgotten about it. I was thinking about it tonight, and it was something just like as I got in my car, like triggered the memory. My mom loved that song Slowly Falling from the soundtrack Once. And that movie is fantastic anyway, and it was up for like an Academy Award like the year before, I think. About, you guys know the man and the woman that want to make the music together. It's like such a great movie. And it's that song, you know, slowly falling down. But anyway, so I listened to it like right before. I didn't even think anything about it. I was just like, oh, I haven't heard that song in a while. And I put it on, and I like immediately just like remembered every word and was like bawling my eyes out driving in here. And so it's weird, you know. It's like I was thinking a lot. Like, I think like the hardest thing for me is like all of the things that my mom hasn't been able, you know, to like that she hasn't been able to see, you know. Like, my mom was my biggest cheerleader. Both of my parents and my stepmom have always been so, you know, awesome as far as like cheering me on and being proud of me and all that kind of stuff. But like, my mom like got so excited by stuff, you know, and like I got this like grant when I was working in treatment. And I think I've told the story on here before, but like it was to go on a like a renewal vacation, and I was going to look at Eric Clapton's treatment program in Antigua. And my boyfriend at the time and my mom both came to like because my supervisor was like, she got one that year too, and I didn't realize that only 25 people in the state of Indiana got it. And so, and it was based on like your work experience and things that you had done for the community and things like that. And so she was like, well, I said, her husband and kids were coming, and I said, well, I didn't really realize, it was like, you know, this like ceremony where they like they would talk about why they chose you to have it, and why they were so committed to you like working in the community and things like that. And so she's like, aren't you gonna have anybody come? And so I was like, yeah, I guess I'll have, you know, my mom and Sean come. And so she came, and I remember just like, you know, she didn't cry, she didn't get like emotional or anything. She just was like so proud of me, you know, like, and I was the youngest person that had ever had it, gotten it. And you know, in all honesty, like, I didn't give my mom a lot of glowing moments like that in her life. Like, you know, I just didn't. I barely graduated from high school, and she knew that. And, you know, like, I didn't go to my college or my graduate school graduation, so she didn't get that, which I wish I would have. You know, she didn't get to make it to my wedding, which was really hard. It was really hard. It was hard. That was harder than I thought it would be, you know? But like, I don't know, something tonight I was thinking about, like my mom would have loved like the fact that I published a book. Like, that would have been so cool to her, because my mom was such an avid reader and, you know, loved to write and stuff. But I really think like the YouTube stuff, my mom would have, like, she wouldn't have understood the hatred and the anger and stuff like that. Like, it would have really upset her. But like the positive results of it, like if she had ever been in public with me and somebody came up and was like, oh my god, I watch your videos, like what happened to me at, like, you know, Sephora, like that, my mother, like, that would have been so exciting for her, you know? Don't get me wrong, it hardly ever happens. But like, she would have loved that, you know? And I think meeting Alex's family, like, we went, you know, I'll talk about our lunch today in a second, but like, she would have loved all of that, you know? And it just makes me sad that she didn't make it to that part, you know? It was interesting because on my Peterisms video today, I was talking about integrity, and that my dad said, like, once you give your integrity away, it's hard to get it back. And somebody made a comment, it was really actually a very good comment, and I think I'm gonna maybe do my Peterisms video on Tuesday about this, but they said, you know, it's interesting to me that you believe in this, because like as an addict, don't you believe you got your integrity away? Well, you know, I started using at 12 years old and getting in trouble at 12 or 13 years old. And I don't know a lot of 12-year-olds that I think have great integrity. I mean, like, that's just not a character trait that I think of with 12-year-olds. I mean, I think of integrity as somebody that's 20 to on, you know, like, I just do. So, and honestly, I don't know a lot of active addicts and alcoholics, and I can only speak from my experience, that have a lot of integrity. They just don't, because we're selfish and we hurt people, you know, and so it's not like we have a lot of integrity. And I meant more like, once people respect you, then if you give your integrity away, it's hard to get it back, if that makes sense. That's what my dad meant by it, you know? But the thing is that like my mom started to, she got to see like the startings of all of that, but like she never really got to see me come full circle, you know? I mean, she just didn't. And the year before she passed away was a really difficult year for me anyway. I was so unhappy at my job. My ex and I were so unhappy together, and she was aware of all of that, you know? I mean, I remember, it just cut off. I cannot believe that. Anyway, I was talking about my mother, and she was very aware of like what was going on, you know? I remember there was something that like we did together, and my ex was supposed to go with us, and at the last minute he like got real angry and was like, I'm not going, you can go with your mother alone. And so like I picked my mom up, and like I think we were going to the casino for like the weekend or something, and she said, maybe it was that Halloween. I think it was that Halloween. No, because we were in Gatlinburg, Tennessee that Halloween. Maybe it was, I don't know. It was something like a carnival, a day fair, you know, something like that. Indiana's got that stuff every weekend. But I was taking her to like, I don't know, markets and something like that. And so anyway, he was going to go with us, and he didn't go because we got in some huge argument. And this would have been like 3 to 4 months before we broke up. And we broke up at December 7th. So this would have been like, I don't know, like September, August, something, July, something like that. And I said, she goes, oh, well, where is he at? And I said, well, we got into an argument and he didn't want to come and whatever. And we like rarely ever argued, which I have to be honest with you, is why I'm really skeptical of couples that say, oh, we never argue. Like, we never just, you know. Well, what I think that is a lot of times is one person holding in a lot of resentment and a lot of anger and never responding to it because they don't want to argue. And that was definitely the case in our relationship. I mean, we just didn't argue because a lot of times I wasn't willing to go there. I just didn't want the confrontation. I just didn't want the argument. I think it's healthy to argue sometimes, you know? And so if you're a couple out there and you argue, I'm not talking every day. I'm talking once in a blue moon. I think that's healthy. But she said to me that day, she said, you know, she said, oh, Peter, that makes me sad. And I go, well, it's not like it's going to be any big deal. And she was like, weeds grow fast in a garden, and before you know it, the weeds have taken over how beautiful the flowers are. And I was like, I thought, at the time, I thought, what is she even saying? And then, like, later, I remember that she had said that to me, and that's, like, to this day, like one of the most valuable things my mom ever said to me, you know? I always paint this picture of my mother as being, like, this wise sage that just sat around. I mean, like, she had a lot of wise things to say, but my mother was very comical. You know, she would tell hilarious stories. It was interesting because on my Mother's Day rant today that I did, I got like a couple people say that they criticized me and were like, why are you making fun of country accents? Okay, so if my mother was sitting here and she read that comment, she would say, anybody that knows you knows that when you start getting talking really fast, you have a twang to your voice. Because my mother would all the time say to me, slow down, you know I cannot stand that twang that you have. She was like, because I have a twang to my voice, like when I get talking really fast. And so anyway, And she could be critical at times. I loved my mom, but she could be very critical of me at times, you know? And, so anyway, but she said that to me, and I remember down the road, I was like, God, that's so true. Like, you know, when you start looking at the negative in a situation, and that's all you look at, whether it's a job, whether it's a friendship, whether it's a romantic relationship, it's really at some point hard to see anything but the negative, you know? And that's the weeds growing fast in a garden. It's like they just multiply, and then all of a sudden it's like you can't see out of the negativity, you know? So anyway, so fast. But I was listening to that music today before then, and I was thinking about 10 years ago tonight, and it's weird because, like, I looked it up on the calendar. So my mother passed away on a Wednesday. I kind of thought it was a Thursday, but it was a Wednesday. And that was when we took her off life support. But that Tuesday, I got a call at about like 11 o'clock at night, I don't know, 11:30. I can see it vividly. I was like sitting in my apartment and I was watching TV. And it was like the charge nurse, and she said that my mother's heart rate was going down. And I said, okay. And she was like, so I was the guardian of my mother at that point. So she said, we need to know whether or not you want to resuscitate her if, you know, she flatlines. And I said, or whatever, however she said it. And I said, yeah, absolutely. I said, because my aunt has this whole thing planned out tomorrow with music and who's going to be there and everything. And I said, if my aunt is not there when my mom passes away after all of this that we have gone through, I said, she will lose her mind. And the nurse said to me, she said, okay, but I just want to inform you of something. She said, when you watch movies and TV, it was so weird because Alex was watching Grey's Anatomy today, and they had a scene like with a character on there like this, and it so reminded me of this conversation. But she said, I just want to inform you that when we resuscitate a body a lot of times, she said, it breaks rib cage, it can break a rib cage, it can, you know, it does a lot of damage a lot of times to the body. And I said, okay. And she's like, so even if she would survive through it, you know, I don't know that that's necessarily the choice that you want to make. And I said, okay. And I said, well, you know, what time does visitation end? Because it was like 11. I was like, it's got to be over by now. You know, I said, can I come in there? You know, is there any time that I can come in there and, you know, say goodbye to my mom if she's going to, because they thought she was going to go in the middle of the night to the morning. And the nurse was so nice. And she was like, oh, sweetie, she was like, you can come in here whenever you want. And I remember I sat there for a second, and at this point, man, I was like, I was smoking so much at that point. Like, not weed, I was sober, but I was smoking so much cigarettes at that point. And I remember I sat in my apartment, and I, like, just kind of leaned back on the couch and smoked a cigarette. And I was like, because I smoked in my apartment, which you should never ever smoke inside anywhere. But if you do, I ain't judging you for it. But anyway, I sat back and I smoked this cigarette, and I thought to myself, like, I think that was like even though, like, I've said to people a lot that, like, I grieved like the 2 months previous to that because I knew that my mom was never going to come out of this. I just knew it. And even though I knew that, like, I sat there and I thought to myself, like, this is really happening. Like, I mean, I've known her, like, I mean, and this sounds crazy when you say I've known her my whole life, but literally, your mother is the person that you've known your entire life unless they leave during their childhood, you know what I mean? Or they pass away young. But, like, that wasn't the case with me. The one person that had been the constant in my life forever was going to be gone. And, like, I didn't know what my world was if she wasn't in it. Like, I couldn't even imagine it. And that's why when people ask me a lot of times, like, how do you get through this? How do you grieve? You just put one foot in front of the other. I mean, there's no magic to it. There really isn't. Like, you just do the best you can, you know? And you have to remember what that person would probably want for you. And I know that my mother would not want me to sit around for, you know, 20 years and just miss her. And even though I do, I've gone on with my life. And she would be happy. And she would definitely, I know, be very happy that I have used her life as an example for trying to live fearlessly and accomplishing your dreams. Like, that would mean a lot to her. So, you know, I went in there that night and I took a shower, like, and changed some clothes, and I went in there and like, it's weird. It's like, out of all the things that would make me emotional, I don't know why this doesn't make me emotional. I never know what's going to make me emotional anymore, you know, about stuff to do with my mom. And that's where I feel like this has been such a great thing for me to talk about it on here. And I really appreciate you guys allowing me to do that. But, like, I went in there to the hospital room, and I remember, like, sitting there next to her bed, which is just, like, such a bizarre thing anyway. Like, you know, she's in a coma. She doesn't look any different to me than she looked the day before. You know, she's just in this coma, and I'm sitting there, and I'm talking to her. And, like, it really hasn't hit me yet. Like, death is such a strange thing. Like, until you go through it with somebody that you're really close to, like, you can't even explain it to somebody. It is absolutely surreal. Like, I remember when I showed up at my cousin's house, or my aunt's house, like, 20 minutes after my aunt passed away, because my cousin called me. And I remember Caroline, you know, came out, my cousin Caroline came out, and she was like, this is, like, so surreal. Like, I don't, you know, and I just looked at her, and I was like, I know, it's like, you can't explain it to somebody, you know? So, I went in there that night, you know, like, and I sat down, and I just talked to her, and I told her a lot of stuff, you know, that I never told her before, and I thanked her for being a great mom. And, you know, I told her that her getting sober made up for everything that had ever happened to me growing up. Because it did. And then I, you know, didn't want her to think about that. And, I remember holding her hand, because, like, I held her hand, like, after she passed away, and it was so cold already, and I remember holding her hand that night. It was just, like, so warm. You know, my mother always had such beautiful nails, and my aunt had kept them up while she was in the hospital, and my mom just had such beautiful nails, you know, which sounds like something weird to notice, but, like, I just, you know, when I talk about, like, the last conversation that we had, that's obviously not the last conversation because she was in a coma, but it was so weird because that day was like, you know, my aunt and my uncle, well, the day that we took my mom off life support, the next day was at 8 o'clock at night. And so my ex came in because he wasn't going to, and I said, my mother loved you and she was good to you and you need to come in and say goodbye. And he was like, I can't do this. And I was like, you need to come in and say goodbye. You need to say goodbye to her. I cannot tell you how many people I had to say that to, okay? Like, let me just tell you, when you have somebody that's, like, about to be taken off life support, suit up and show up and say goodbye, okay? Like, I can't tell you how many people, like, I had to say, could you please come? Like, they just really were resistant to it, you know? And that was for me. That wasn't for my mom. That was for me, you know? To, in some weird way, know that she mattered to them or something. So, anyway, he didn't want to come in because he hadn't seen my aunt and stuff since we broke. It doesn't matter, but anyway, so he came in and everybody cleared out. I think it was that day. It was either that day or the day before. But the day that my mom was taken off life support, and I've talked about this on here before, like, my dad went in and, like, you know, everybody was around, and he asked my aunt, he said, can you give me some time? And I don't know why, like, out of everything, this is always, like, the hardest thing for me. I don't know why. Like, after all this time, you know, I don't know why this is, like, the one thing that's so hard for me. And, he like closed the door and he was like in there for an hour and he came out and I said to my aunt later, I said, well, what did he say to her? And she goes, I don't know. She said he came out, he was very emotional. And later I asked my dad, I said, you know, Aunt Kathy said that you were in there for like an hour. Like, what did you say to her? You know, like, and she's in a coma. So, I mean, and I'm a believer that people in comas a lot of times know what's going on. And he said that he just sat down with her and he said, you know, I loved you and thank you so much for our son. I'm sorry that you had a really horrible life. Because she did, you know, like, my mother had a great life, but she also had like a really horrible life and she struggles from so much mental health issues that mostly went undiagnosed, you know. She was just such a sad person. And he said, I told her that if he wished he could have made it better for her. And I thought to myself, you know, like, that's all my mother wanted to have since the day that they got divorced. That's all he wanted. She just wanted that conversation, you know? Okay, I am so tired of this camera, and I don't even know when it shut off, but anyway, I was talking about, I just don't think that, you know, a lot of times it's hard, I think it's easier to, you know, give people what they need, you know, and make things right, and I don't know, I just don't think it's that difficult. I just really don't. I sometimes wonder, like, if my dad had ever tried to have that conversation with my mom, like, how it would have been received. You know, like, if she had been, like, not in a hospital bed, but, like, fully conscious, you know, to sit there and have that conversation with her, like, in her living room or out at a restaurant. Like, I think part of the reason why he never did was because I think, like, she would have been, but why, you know? Because my mom took responsibility for so much of the failure of the marriage, is how she saw it. Which I'm not a believer that any relationship that fails is just one person's fault. I believe it takes two to tango, I really do. I don't think it's 50-50. I think it can be 80-20, you know, 90-10, 40-60, but I do think that both people have some part, you know, in what happens in a relationship, the success or, I don't know, and I don't really love, like, when people say, my marriage failed, like, I don't like that terminology to it, I don't know. But I think that's probably why he didn't try to ever have that conversation with her, because my dad's a pretty reasonable person. I think she would have just been like, but why? But, like, I did this, and I was that kind of wife, and, you know, whatever. And the reality was that my dad, his response to that would have been, we fell out of love with each other. And she even admitted to that. She was like, you know, we weren't in love anymore, so why were you together, you know, if you didn't love each other? It's pretty simple, you know, like... And I think there becomes a point in a marriage where it passes, you know, having read my mom's journals, like, she had fallen out of love with my dad before I was even born. You know, my dad told me later that to some degree, like, because he was so intent on saving the marriage, that like, they consciously, and my dad knew, like, I'll have to tell this story on here sometime, because my dad and I look so much alike, but when I found, like, the letters that my mom had, like, written this guy, and she'd had this relationship with him and stuff like that in Florida that I was completely unaware of, and I've told this story on here before about how I tracked this guy down and stuff, and he remembered my mom, but anyway, I kind of thought, like, for a second, like, is this guy my dad? Well, it's so ridiculous. I mean, my dad and I look so much alike, and my dad was like, Peter, he was like, I even remember the weekend that it happened, because we went back to IU for homecoming, and you were conceived in Bloomington, Indiana, on homecoming weekend, blah, 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 whatever. Like, he knew, like, exactly when it happened, and he goes, it was very much like, we went there to kind of, like, that's where they had met, was on the IU campus, through my aunt, and, it was like, we went there to, like, find passion in our relationship again, and we did. And he was like, we were kind of like, if it doesn't work if we don't find it in our hearts again this weekend, then we need to probably go our separate ways. And there's so much involved in why my parents, like, you know, didn't make it. And it's very much like the movie The Way We Were. Like, my dad is very conservative, and my mother is, I mean, he's not with issues, like, he could care less about, you know, like, it's not that he could care less. Like, my dad is kind of a right fighter when it comes to issues like LGBT issues and things like that. And, but, like, my mother was wanting to go to the riots in Chicago, like, with the Chicago 7. And my dad was like, she used to say to me, he would say, if you go, that's fine, but we're done. Like, we live a different life now, you know? And so, like, I think she felt restrained a lot. And, I don't know. I'll tell that story some other day, but I might talk more about my mom tomorrow. We'll see. My Mother's Day today. So we got up, and I filmed the rant video, if y'all watched it. And then, we went to brunch. We went to dinner at 5 o'clock. They decided on Basmo's Pizza, which was nice. We sat outside, but it was about 86 degrees. It was so hot. I was sweating the entire time. We were like, Alex's Uncle Ed is so funny. That's married to his Tia Jackie. And, so we were just laughing so hard, and just like, it's just constant chatter, you know? And Alex's mom, who is always late to everything, was 10 minutes early. I couldn't believe it. And yes, I took the huge card, and she loved it. Did I say that already on here? But, my sister-in-law, Liliana, and the kids, and this friend of theirs that lives with them showed up like 40 minutes late. And, so we couldn't really order food until then, and I was like hangry. But of course I'm trying to be like, you know, the good son-in-law and just sit there and, oh right, yeah, I'm so hungry. And, then Alex's brother showed up like an hour late. The kids were a little unruly today, which they're always very well behaved. But Carlitos was a little wild today, and part of the problem is, like, it's just him and Sebastian, who is, you know, 2.5, so it's like, I think he gets so bored. He played on his tablet for like an hour, and then it was like enough already. He couldn't do it anymore. And my brother and sister-in-law are so good with them. You know, they're like, you know, sit down. But like, he would sit down, and then he would like start squirming in his chair. It's hard for kids. Our dinner was over 3 hours long at a pizza place. 3 hours. And people standing up, and 400 pictures. I mean, it was fun. It was good, but it just was so hot. I'm just thankful for the fact that I, you know, have a big family like that to do stuff with, so. It was funny because I was sitting there, and it's like, you know, everybody's so loud that we're with, and they're all like talking over each other, and they're all speaking in Spanish, and they speak so fast. Like, it's so fast. And, like, part of my not learning Spanish is my intimidation of the speed. And, it was, like, funny because, like, a lot of people were, like, you could just tell that they were kind of, like, watching us. And not watching us, like, oh, my God, those people are so loud. But kind of, like, intrigued. And I was like, I wonder what they, like, make of, like, all of us. like, what they think about all of us, you know? It's, like, big, crazy Venezuelan family. But we had a good time. So we were there for like 3 hours. We got there at 5, and we left there like after 8, and then Alex and I came home. And we were so tired. We like fed the dogs, I get PBS medicine just before I left for this. But anyway, we fed the dogs, and then I went upstairs, and we were both like on our phones. And I said, what are you going to do now? He's like, I want to watch a little bit of TV. And I said, I want to do a live stream later. I haven't done a live stream in you know, like a week. I said, but I'm so tired. I said, I need to lay down for a little bit. And he said, okay. So, like, it was still light outside. I love when it's like light late into the year, like the summer is always like that. And so I laid there and plugged my phone in, and so I set my alarm, and I turned over, and he had like had his eyes closed, and I said, "Are you gonna go to sleep? Are you gonna take a nap?" And he goes, "I mean, I'm just relaxed." And he was out like that, and all the puppies were all, you know, curled up in between us. It was so nice. We had such a nice nap together. And then I woke up at like, oh, let's see, if I laid down about 8:30, about 10:15 I woke up, I think. And I just was like, oh my God, that was the best nap in the entire world. And then he woke up right after that because the dogs wanted to go outside. So I got up to take the dogs outside. And I came back up and I was like, are you going back to bed? He's like, yeah, I'm going back to bed for the night. And he went to bed at like 8 o'clock, 8:15, and was like, he's in bed for the night. And tomorrow we're going to brunch at my mother-in-law's. She just moved into an apartment, which I haven't actually talked a lot about this on here, but like, I don't know why, I just haven't. So she doesn't want as much space anymore. She just wants a small amount of space. So she and her mother moved into like a 3-bedroom apartment just down the street, and she gave her house to Carlos so that he and Liliana could raise the kids there. So they're now living, they went in and like repainted and did everything. So they're like living in her house now. She gave them her house. She gave it to them. So she's like living in an apartment, and she's so excited and so happy. And she's like, I have my own space and whatever. She just doesn't want to mow. She doesn't want to deal with any of that kind of stuff anymore. But I can't believe like she just is like, so anyway, so we're going over to her apartment tomorrow, Alex and I and Liliana, for brunch. And she's making cachapas, which is like a Venezuelan meal. So, and I haven't seen her apartment yet. So I'm excited about that. I actually haven't been to the house since Carlos and Liliana moved into it. And, but Carlos's birthday is next Sunday, so we're having a birthday party next Sunday at 7 o'clock, another family gathering. I kind of am sarcastic about it, but you guys, I hope you know that I love my family. Like I do, like I look forward to that stuff, you know? That's my dad coming out in me, where my dad's like, oh, another birthday party. You know, like that's my dad, but like he secretly loved that shit. I get that. That's the sarcastic humor that I get from my dad. I don't know. Like I feel like I have to explain it myself half the time with my humor, because it's like there's always that 1 or 2 people out there that are like, you should be thankful that you have your family, and you know, blah 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 whatever. And I'm like, okay, I'm joking. It's called humor. It's 19. Oh my God, it's 19. It's 2018. Find some humor. I love my family. I love spending time with them. I'm so thankful for them. All right, listen, you guys, I'm going to get off here and listen to my audiobook a little bit, and then I'm going to, it's not even actually that late, and then I'm going to go home and go to bed so I can be up at 10:30 in the morning for brunch. I love you guys, and I hope you had a wonderful Mother's Day, and I will see you tomorrow. Bye.